Welcome to the Daily Beast podcast. I'm Joanna Coles. I'm the Chief Content Officer of the Daily Beast.
And I am Samantha Bee. I'm the Chief Content Officer of Lauren Boebert's Spray Tan. So intense. Did you see her?
So many spray tans. What about Melania's spray tan?
Everybody is just espresso. It is like just Rachel Dolezal all over again, all over the room. I could not believe it. And you know what? I wanted to say thoughts and prayers. Thoughts and prayers to that one woman from the GOP who also wore hot pink and did not get the memo about the resistance.
Who is that? It was Laura. I wrote down, it's Laurel Lee from Florida.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, I loved it.
It was very hot Florida pink. Mm-hmm. So for people who haven't listened to the podcast before, first of all, why not? But it's important to know that the reason we do this is every week we dissect the people and the stories of the week that we're obsessed by at the Daily Beast.
Mm-hmm. We have a lot of obsessions this week.
We're going to start off with the biggest TV event in the country. No, not the Oscars and not the presidential address, which we will be discussing with Ben Meiselas from Midas Touch Network, which just knocked Joe Rogan off the top of the podcast charts. Congratulations, Ben. Mm-hmm. I'm talking about Meghan Markle's new Netflix show, With Love.
Yes.
So much to discuss. And since I last saw you, of course, Elon's had another baby.
Yes. Oh, I can't remember what the baby's name is, and I would never.
I can remember because I've got a list of all his children's names, which I would like to do as a formal reading.
That's nice.
Can I do a formal reading? What are we doing first? Meghan, formal reading of Elon's kids.
Well, I feel that we should but we should do first impressions from last night, which we are taping this on a Wednesday morning. So first impressions from the presidential address last night. What do you think?
I would rather focus on Alyssa Slotnick's response. Mm-hmm. I was not hopeful, and I just thought, wow, I actually found Trump's speech magnificent television. I found it too long, and we'll go into this with Ben Meiselas. Mm-hmm. But I did find bits of it rousing, and a bit at the end about the pioneers. I mean, I'm I don't even want to say it out loud. I am a naturalized citizen, or whatever they call it. Mm-hmm. I think actually they call it a person of exceptional alien intelligence. But I found all that stuff rousing. The pioneers, Shenandoah, I'm also appalled by the fact that I find it rousing. But what I did like was Alyssa Slotnick's Michigan... Slotkin, sorry. What did I say? Slotnick, sorry. What am I've had 3 cups of coffee this morning. I'm out of control. I'm taking prednisone. It's just a disaster.
Boy.
I found her response grounded, intelligent, reassuring, normal. I'm like, come on, Democrats, you can do it. I didn't like the paddles. It made me feel like they were trying to auction off something. Mm-hmm. I was like, no, that paddle thing's not working for you. Mm-hmm. I didn't like the guy who walked out. It's like either all walk out, but one guy sort of shouting, we can't hear what you're shouting. Mm-hmm. It's like, sit down already and just watch what's happening.
Mm-hmm. I liked her too. I like that Trump seems very fearful of the women of Michigan, as I also learned from reading Michael Wolff's terrific book about him, that he is terrified of Gretchen Whitmer, and I certainly approve that message.
Can I make a small point here too?
Yes.
We've talked a lot about Jeff Bezos bending the knee and him stripping the Washington Post of its sort of op-ed editor. But of course, the other thing that Jeff Bezos likes even more than he likes democracy is money. And Amazon is, interestingly, the biggest purveyor of all the anti-Trump books.
Oh, that's interesting.
Isn't that interesting? I like that. He must be really dancing on a knife edge there.
Well, he definitely worships the god of money and money alone. So that kind of tracks for me.
Right.
I found the speech sort of, nothing was surprising to me. It was very consistent with everything he said, just a bunch of culture war bullshit with some kind of warmed over insult comedy, a bunch of feckless dolts clapping their faces off, half of them too dumb to pound sand, half of them don't even know where babies come from, but meanwhile they're like, yeah, Lesotho, who's ever heard of that country? Oh.
Can I just point out, Usher Vance is a mini clapper. She barely claps. She's got like a weird little...
Tiny clap.
Tiny clap.
Little baby
tiny
hands.
Clapper, tiny dancer. It's weird. It's weird. She's like she looked to me like she'd lost a lot of weight too.
Speaking of J.D. Vance, I will say that anyone who, any one of us should invite teenagers into our room when we are watching these presidential addresses because they cut to the chase so quickly. My son, who's 16, came into the room and in a microsecond identified that J.D. Vance absolutely loathes Donald Trump. And like it took him, he's a body language expert. 16-year-olds are body language experts. He was able to to read so many signifiers of body language in 1 second flat.
Well, we had a wonderful photo in the Beast this morning of just the entire cabinet mid-clap.
Okay.
And it's just, I mean, it was astonishing. I mean, you've got the Joint Chiefs of Staff, you've got the Chief Justices, you've got the cabinet, and they're all mid-clap. It's just, what I found surprising was just the energy in the House and the extraordinary flatness of the Democrats and just this sense of, I mean, they panned to some of them and some of them looked like they were asleep. There was no coherent response other than wearing pink for the ladies.
And yeah, I'm not giving into, I kind of woke up this morning and I thought, you know what, I'm not giving into these provocations. Doge is a mess. The stock market is spasming. Veterans are losing their jobs. The agricultural sector is absolutely freaking out. He's going to crater on tariffs because a new car is going to cost like $8,000 more overnight. So my general impression is, all right, you did this. It's time to grow up. Pull your pants up because you're the government. Time to govern. And you're not doing a good job already. And we're about 40 days in. So afterwards, I needed a palate cleanser. So guess what I watched?
I know what you watched. Did you self-soothe with Meghan Markle?
I self-soothed with 3 episodes of Meghan Markle's new show. I know you have strong impressions. I know you have strong thoughts.
I do have strong thoughts, and I don't want to join the chorus of negativity around this. But this is, I would just say one thing. This is not a television show. This is an Instagram feed. And unfortunately, you can't spread it over 41 minutes. And you cannot have the first episode with your makeup artist / friend.
Right.
He's not interesting enough. I'm sure he's a very good makeup artist. He is not a television star, and neither is she. She's an actress. And if Meghan had good advisors around her, they would say, Meghan, we love you. Go back to doing what you do, which is reading a script, being part of an ensemble cast. She never, as Tina Brown so cruelly says in her book, The Palace Papers, she never got above number 6 on the call sheet. But she was great at number 6 on the call sheet.
Right.
And don't torture your poor friend Mindy Kaling. Can you imagine the call that Mindy Kaling must have had, because she must have some Netflix show coming up or something, and they're like, hey, Mindy, we need you to do us a favour. Can you go over and have tea with Meghan, pretend to eat her cake, pretend to love her frittata, that she puts flowers on and weird seasonings, and ask some questions about it, because we need you to do us a,
Joanna,
we need you to do us a favor.
You blew the barn doors off. I don't really have too much to add to that. That is
that was a lot, wasn't it?
Ditto. It doesn't. It's not really a show, and they're not really making anything. I think, like, authentically, she seems to like all of those snacks and things that she's doing. But
I don't think she's eating those snacks.
Nobody's eating them. I mean, like, literally no one is eating them. No one barely takes a bite of the food. It's not really, I mean, a piece of bread with cream cheese on it is not really a sandwich per se that I would need instructions on. So I'm not sure who it's for exactly.
Well, it's for the Instagram crowd, right? It's for people who like pretty things. I mean, when you compare it to the Martha Stewart documentary, which was masterful.
Yes.
Cutler's documentary, so good. And you see Martha getting up at 4 a.m. I mean, Martha is someone who doesn't sleep. She lives and breathes this stuff. She changed the American home. I don't know what this is.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, and I don't know who it's for. And I do agree with you. I think she's actually getting some. Sometimes when you have a big profile and you have teams around you who keep telling you to grab at every opportunity that comes your way, but sometimes you actually have to have the presence of mind to go, I don't think that this is a show. Like, I don't think that I have the personality to carry this. Like, it actually takes a lot to build a show around a personality.
Right.
And there's just not enough in it. And I am actually kind of personally surprised that she doesn't go down a more fashion path. Actually, she looks great in clothes, really wears them well. She has wonderful taste. I mean, it's very, it's very beigey and people are making fun of it and whatever, but she does really wear clothes well and cares deeply about that world. And so I'm actually kind of shocked that they wouldn't kind of take her down that path. It seems more logical to me. I felt a sadness because it's such a big pylon, and I think that this woman authentically, at some point in one of the episodes, she says, "I love birdsong," and I'm like, I do too. I understand what you're saying. Like, I also keep bees. I love all this. Yeah, I love
I didn't
all
know
this
you
stuff.
kept bees.
I do. I actually have more hives.
Samantha Bee keeps bees.
Well, it's very on brand, and I kind of
bees.
Yeah, and my honey is delicious. It's like very rewarding to me.
Look, can we have an eating next week? We should do. Of course, I eat honey.
Oh, I'll bring you a jar.
Honey.
I'll bring everyone a jar.
Well, I want you to bring me a piece of bread. I want you to do what Meghan does: piece of bread.
I don't eat that
cream
way.
cheese.
Nobody eats that
Nobody
way.
eats that way.
I don't want a plain piece of baguette with a little streak of goat cheese on it and then a flour. When people are putting flowers on food, that means they're not eating the food because, they're technically edible, but who's like, this nasturtium is delicious. Like, there's other more delicious ways to add to food.
I will say, though, she did shame me because I am not a very good hostess. And I was thinking when she talked about preparing, one of her favourite things is to prepare the guest bedroom for a guest.
Yeah.
And when I have guests, they often come out and they say, "Do you have any soap? Do you have any? Is there any toilet roll?
Towel, please?
Could." And I'm so bad at remembering to put that stuff. I always put towels out for people, but I do forget everything else. So I felt shamed by the fact that I don't make homemade Epsom salts for
can
people.
I take these Amazon boxes off the bed to sleep on it, or do I have to sleep on top of the empty boxes?
Yeah, that's very much, if you come to my house, poor Melora Hardin, who comes often to stay, and she's always trotting out saying, "Joanna, do you have any soap?" She puts on a fake English accent for me, but so I did learn from that I need to prepare a little wooden tray with some homemade Epsom salts.
Yes,
and also tea bags for the bath, which I thought was a good tip.
That is a good tip. I'll take that tip on.
Yep.
When you take all of the flowers that you didn't eat on top of your crostinis, you can then put them in a little sachet and put them in the tub, and then you don't get flower petals all over your tub. I don't live this way.
I do
but
have.
I wish I did.
I do occasionally sprinkle petals into my bath, and then I'm like, at the end of the bath, damn, why did I do that? Because then you have to clear it up, and it's a nightmare.
God.
And you actually have to sieve them out. That's what she should. If she was really doing it, she would have a sieve for people.
I'm such a
so they can
pragmatic.
sieve the flowers.
I'm such a pragmatic Canadian. I'm just like, shower, swab the deck, get that washcloth on a rubbing stick, and get it over with.
Okay, I would like to point out that I am wearing my pinstripe jacket in honor of our First Lady.
Our First Lady is rocked that gray suit. And you know what occurred to me? Because if I may, my Audible show, How to Survive Menopause, is released on March 6th. And I want to recommend that Melania listen to it because I feel like she's in my age category. And we don't talk enough about how she must be perimenopausal now.
Interesting.
Yes.
Well, I think she's probably menopausal, isn't she? Because perimenopausal you go into earlier.
Joanna,
I think she's going through something. Nell Scovell wrote a very good piece in The Beast this week, which I have urged everybody to read, about her morphing into a man, actually. Because she's just wearing business suits. She's wearing
a lot of business suits and a lot of neckties, just like me working at like Joe's Crab Shack in the 1990s. We all wore
Did you wear
our
a necktie?
shirts and our neckties and our name tags.
And can I point out, you did call it last week when you said she would be back with more Be Best. Be More Best.
I'm so excited to be being more best. I'm thrilled. I feel like it makes us more relevant than ever.
All right, it's time for an official reading of Elon's kids' names. I'm glad he's had 2 babies in the last 2 weeks. Very exciting for all of them. All right, and actually what I noticed was just a progression of insanity when it comes to their names. So we kick off with Nevada, then we have Griffin Musk.
Great.
Vivian Jenner.
Yes.
and Wilson.
Yeah.
And then we have Kai, Saxon, and Damien.
Okay.
Then we have the unpronounceable X. I don't know how to pronounce the rest of it.
Don't know the rest.
First,
Yeah.
with Grimes. Then we've got Azure and Strider.
Okay.
I quite like Strider. And then we've got Exodark Sideral Musk.
Oh, dear.
Then we've got
Oh,
Techno
dear.
Mechanicus.
Dear,
Then
dear,
we've got
dear.
Arcadia, which is a nice name. And then we've got a child that, as far as is no name.
Okay.
And then we've got the most recent, Selden Lycurgus.
I don't think we're going in a good direction. We're in science fiction land. These are names coming out of Gormenghast. And I don't think it says good things about where his head is at. I don't know.
Does he throw his gum at his baby mamas?
Listen, I did not watch the Academy Awards, but I did watch that clip of Adrian Brody tossing his gum at Georgina Chapman. And that was the one moment that I probably had the strongest feelings about this week, because I just think people are really, you can swallow your gum. Like, grow up. Please, I'm actually admonishing Adrian Brody right now. Grow up. Be a man. Swallow your gum. I swallow my gum all the time. If you swallow
You
gum...
swallow your gum?
Of course I do, because I'm a grown-up woman and I know that my stomach acid is going to take care of it. If you swallow 10 pieces of gum, it doesn't turn into a rubber ball in your stomach. You don't have to throw it at your girlfriend and make her run around in that tight dress to catch your chewed-up, saliva-encrusted gum.
Where did it come from that you're not allowed to swallow chewing gum?
It's ridiculous. You also don't grow a watermelon in your tummy if you eat watermelon seeds, which I do because I love watermelon and I don't need to spit seeds everywhere. They get digested like cherry pits, which I also eat.
You eat cherry pits. What is going on in that stomach of yours? What is going
Processing
on?
seeds and gums.
Okay,
It's
that's the show.
fine.
You need to be a guest on Meghan's show. You need to eat everything. You need to eat all her
I'll do
flowers,
it.
all her flowers, and the Epsom salts that she puts like honey in.
I'm so sorry, but a donut with flowers on it is just not a place. It's not where I want to go with a donut. So I appreciate all the beauty. I appreciate the bees. I appreciate the bird song. I felt sad after watching 3 episodes, but never, don't you goddamn dare put a flower on a donut. That is the wrong. That is
the wrong instinct.
Incorrect. We are having a donut. May we please have a donut? And secondly, and this is unpopular, a baked donut is actually not a donut. It's actually just a round cake with a hole in it. Okay? Round bread is not a bagel, and a round cake is not a donut. And that is the most important sentence you will hear me say in the rest of my life.
We're back and we're thrilled to be joined by this week's Beast of the Week, Ben Meiselas. Ben is the co-founder of Midas Touch, one of the most influential pro-democracy media networks that has amassed millions of followers and helped shape progressive messaging with fact-driven, rapid response content. Beyond media, Ben is a powerhouse attorney in an impressive side quest. He represented Colin Kaepernick in his historic case against the NFL and later became his business partner. Not a bad idea. He teaches sports law at USC and he's led major class action lawsuits against corporate giants. If you want the news cut, dried and seasoned and not sprinkled with flowers, Ben Meiselas is your guy. Ben, thanks for joining us and congratulations on elbowing Joe Rogan out of the top spot of the most listened to podcasts.
Ben, thank you so much for joining us today. We are so excited to talk to you.
Very
I
excited.
think we have to go right into it. We all watched the congressional address. First impressions, last impressions, all impressions in between. Did you love it?
I definitely didn't love it.
No.
It was embarrassing. It was shameful. He just made up things. He wanted to be applauded for things that he didn't do, and then was saying, "Why aren't you clapping for me?" I mean, the whole thing was just strange, not normal. And then to see sitting there, one of the major political parties, the Republican Party, like clapping for this stuff as he's talking about taking over Greenland and we're going to conquer it one way or another, and talking about taking over Panama and saying how the tariffs are gonna hurt people, but you know what? It's gonna be okay for a little bit, right, everybody? I'm just listening to this and I'm like, this is not normal. This is not normal crap.
Yeah, and mocking other countries and everybody just going along with it and laughing and clapping at like cutting off aid to nations who desperately need it. I actually found it really pretty like very in character, very expected. Do you normally watch these spectacles? Like, how do you normally watch this type of congressional address? I never really love them.
You know, I unfortunately, for what I do, have to watch them all. And so I've probably have watched every single or close to every single Trump speech, you know, and I going back, you know, to, I mean, at least in recent memory, the Waco, Texas speech where he kicked off his campaign. And the very first thing that they did when he kicked off his campaign was they replaced the American anthem with the January 6th anthem. And they said, please rise for the January 6th insurrectionists, the unfairly treated hostages. And then they proceeded, instead of the national anthem, to play a song that was creepy and eerie, and it was recorded in the prison by some of the worst January 6th insurrectionists on the 30th anniversary of the Waco siege, on the anniversary of the Oklahoma City bombing. And then the speech, I think Ted Nugent was then one of the first speakers.
Fantastic.
Ted Nugent called Zelensky like a raging homosexual, and then everybody started clapping for that. And I'm watching this, and I'm saying to myself, you know, this is a heinous and despicable spectacle. And then I was looking at the news coverage for it, and the news coverage treated this thing as though it was, you know, Al Gore, George W. Bush, as though it was, you know, Bob Dole, Bill Clinton. And I'm like, did you just hear what the hell I just heard? And then it was important that I saw it in its full context, because then I would report about it. And that was ultimately some of the connections that I started building this network in earnest then, though. And it goes right to your question, because I'd watch this, it would shock my conscience. And then I would just say it in plain terms, what I saw. And there was just not a lot of other people who were saying it, but the people felt it, people sensed it. So then there was this connection with the audience where I was like looking at the camera, you know, and again, I don't really have a journalist background. I'm not like a political person. And I just looked at the camera and I would just say, like, did we just watch that? Like, do y'all see that? And that's kind of, you know, part of the origin story of our growth. But to answer your question, yes, I watched them all. And I can tell you, you know, he says this here, he says this there. I can tell you where he's going with his policies based on like studying these speeches.
You have a myopic understanding and history of Donald Trump's performances, which I find fascinating, which you drop into your podcast. I want to come back to how you built your network in a moment. But just to finish on last night, you see, I had a different reaction. I thought it was he took something which is traditionally boring and turned it into a political version of The Price is Right. You know, we had DJ who just got cancer treatment. We had all these people up there who had incredible personal stories, which you can't take away from them. He's obviously politicizing them. But I actually thought it was masterful. I thought it was too long. I think he's going into his Castro phase. I'm nervous that next year it'll be 7 hours, which was Castro's average speech. But I thought it was masterful television. And I think, Ben, to your point about Waco earlier, the thing that Donald Trump understands is his audience, and you understand your audience, and you've built your audience.
He does understand his audience, but I have to say that I found it very consistent with everything he's ever said, so there were no big surprises to me, and I actually found it very stale and boring and provocative, but I didn't feel like I was taking the bait because I've heard all this stuff so many times before. I mean, it shocks your conscience, and the way that you speak about it so plainly and so directly is like it's the secret sauce, and it is actually missing from the discourse. And I do think that that is why people are really drawn to you. It's why I'm drawn to you.
You know, I think that you have either it being approached at an elitist level that's talking down to audiences, not to audiences, or you have people who are yelling in their presentation and fighting.
Right.
And my approach is a bit kind of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. You know, I sit here in my living room, I experience it with the audience, and then I just share with the audience what my experience is. And Joanna, to your point, though, I like boring in politics. I like
Yes.
excitement in TV. I don't like waking up knowing, is the Dow Jones going to crash? Even if it's masterful TV for Donald Trump to threaten allies and NATO and bring an ally that's a war hero into the Oval Office, one can argue, Joanna, what masterful television, and you couldn't script it better in a action movie, you know, or a horror movie, whichever movie you want to do. What happened last week, for example, with Zelensky. But like, ultimately, the broader project that I have is I want to desensationalize and deconstruct where I think politics has gone, because I want to go back to watching entertainment as entertainment.
Right.
And I want my politics to be serious business where it's life or death for people. And where I try to bring my audience back into it is to say, you know, yeah, sure. I mean, I get it. Like that may be something funny if we were watching the movie Idiocracy meets Billy Madison. But this is your Medicaid and this is your Social Security.
Yes, I mean, it's just provocation after provocation after provocation. And then the context behind all of it is that the stock market is in total turmoil. Tariffs, everybody is, I'm from Canada originally, and people are reeling from this already. It's total chaos. It feels ridiculous to have to watch half of our government stand up and cheer for the most heinous things you've ever heard. It's ridiculous.
Well, the House, the entire Republican Party looked utterly whipped under him, didn't they? So Ben, I take your origin story from listening to Donald Trump and Waco. How have you created such an extraordinary network that you've managed to knock Joe Rogan off the top of the podcast charts? Congratulations on that. You started showing up in my feed. Ron Filipowski, your editor-in-chief of Midas Touch, is fantastic. I think he's an incredible correspondent for you. And you've got your brothers, Geordie and Brett. Tell us about the Meiselas family. I mean, what was your mum putting in your breakfast? What are Sam and I doing wrong here? Come on, why haven't we bred podcast winners?
Well, because we never viewed what we were doing as, how can we beat Joe Rogan? And we actually never viewed what we were doing as, hey, we wanted to create this massive podcast. I mean, it was really organic and being built brick by brick of, we just wanted to speak out about how we felt about these crazy times. And then it connected with an audience and a community of people who call themselves the Midas Mighty. And it's a group of literally millions of people now. But at the time, it started with 5 people who would watch, and then 10 people, and then 50 people. And it's just people who want normalcy returned to politics. And they've been the backbone of this movement. But when we set out, we all had different talents. Brett is a digital editor. He worked at a lot of TV shows growing up and would do their digital stuff when he was, in his 20s. I was a civil rights lawyer. I represented families in Bakersfield, whether they were Democratic or Republican. Bakersfield is a red dot in a blue state in California. And I would represent a lot of families there in cases against the government and the police. I'd help lead rallies there. And so my background was in civil rights law, which connected me to Colin Kaepernick, and I was his lawyer. And then I pivoted to...
You were his lawyer with against the NFL, correct?
Correct. And then I did his deal with Nike, and I helped build his media businesses with him, which gave me a background in how to build something if you wanted to. And then my younger brother, Geordie, is a marketing executive. And so we put those talents together in terms of being able to build this. And it just kind of grew organically. I don't even view what I do in terms of fitting a neat political category, although people put me into buckets right away. but I never viewed what I'm trying to do as like, I think the Rogans of the world, I think what they did is very problematic because I think they weaponize their comedy. I think they weaponize, which I don't even find that funny, to be honest. They weaponize their comedy, their, sports, entertainment, and they pretended it was about that. But that was really subterfuge for a political agenda to, in my view, launder the oligarchy at the very last minute. And so they hid their political leanings. I pretty much make it clear where I stand on issues in a very fact-based way. But my goal is actually deconstructing the chaos and the craziness to try to give people the facts so that they can go out and really know how they're being played, how they're being taken advantage of, and what the tactics are. I think that's what hits.
You also have the ability to just speak in one long continuous sentence for hours. It's very impressive. Like you and Joe Rogan both talk, like Sam and I have conversations with each other. But the thing I can't do, and I would love to be able to do, is the thing you can do, which is just talk. It's fascinating to me. And that's what Rogan does. It's this new style of communicating, I guess. But I wanted to make sure that we talked to you also about Alyssa Slotnick's response. Did you manage to see it?
It was great. I thought it was a great response, and I didn't know what to expect. I knew her as a member of Congress. I followed her Senate campaign in Michigan a little bit, saw her speak at a few Kamala events, but I wasn't sure what to expect. But I thought she did a good job bringing it back to what the issues are, which is, if you're probably sitting there, and I think Joanna, she raised your point exactly, which is you might have found that a little bit entertaining, but right now you're struggling, and the markets were crashing, when she was, that day, and the prices are not going down. And remember what he promised. So I thought she hit it out of the park.
Yeah, I thought she did
agree.
too. I thought she did a great job of communicating that, like, the show is the show, but you're the government now, boys. Time to actually do things. Can I ask how your operation actually? Can I just ask how you do the work? What does that actually look like so are you taking notes? Do you have a team? How big is your team? Do you mind me asking just kind of the technical?
In terms of my notes, I think these were all the notes I took yesterday. I'm holding it up. It's just one page of a notebook, which is probably my entire day of notes, maybe 2 days. So I don't do it with notes at all. I'm following the news from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to sleep, which is a lot of the day. We've got a number of producers who, a lot of them started off as interns in college, and then they became, the producers, and they've kind of grown with the company. They help editing the videos and putting the podcasts on the network. I'm the main contributor of the Midas Touch channel, but we have a number of other great contributors who are on the main Midas Touch YouTube channel, like Francis Maxwell. We've got some great lawyers like Karen Friedman Agnifilo, who some people may know. She's the defense lawyer that everyone sees on, she was the number 2 at the Manhattan DA's office, but she's Luigi Mangione's lawyer now. So,
Okay.
What has she talked to you about? What his defense is going to be, Ben?
Yeah, we don't really talk about that. And she has, her own attorney-client privilege to protect there. I'm proud of her whenever I see her at those appearances. But she was the number 2 at the Manhattan DA's office. I mean, she's one of the top lawyers out there in the country. We have people like David Arenberg and Harry Littman, people who you've seen on cable, who are very well-respected lawyers, Michael Popak and others. And so they're the hosts. And then we have the main Midas Touch YouTube channel. We have a number of other YouTube channels, like our Gen Z channel from Adam Mockler. And Adam Mockler was in the Capitol building during the State of the Union, or the joint session, interviewing all the members of Congress. He had his Wi-Fi backpack. We have a number of channels like that. So host, correspondents, broadcasting throughout the day. And then we have an editorial team that's led by Ron Filipkowski, with researchers and people who do the clips, who, I'm sure people know from social media, ACYN, ACYN.
He's amazing.
He clips all of the main the things that ultimately drive the political cycles, and usually cable news and other news networks take ACYN's clips. He's so good at it. And so that's helpful for my process also when I do video.
He's got a very, very good eye. What do you think legacy media has done wrong that all these independent media companies such as Midas have formed in the ashes of their fire?
I just think that they forgot that they have viewers, and viewers they took for granted that their viewers would always be there, and they thought they could sell their viewers on kind of anything, and because they controlled the pipes, their viewers had nowhere else to go. And I think that they neglected that their viewers are smart, their viewers are pissed, their viewers are people, and they need to build that trust. You know, you think about the origins of the Fourth Estate, where this connection that was made between the reporter who would speak to the audience, who was one of the most trusted people in their, in their homes. And I think that trust had been eroded over time, and they lost the trust of their audience, and they lost their trust of the audience by sometimes both sidesing issues that shouldn't really have a both sides to them, and just saying, hey, on the one hand, this was said, on the other hand, this is said. And then people were like, what are you talking about? Like, you're talking about, like, to the example I gave earlier, you're acting like this speech in Waco, Texas is a normal event, and it's not. Don't treat it normal. And just stuff like that would start to wear on people. And so you would have the right-wing people, they had a home. They would go to Fox. Fox would tell them what they wanted to hear. And then you'd go to kind of corporate legacy media, and they would kind of give you a both sides.
Sure. Well, they also had a real, and I think legitimate worry about losing access to those rooms. Whereas if you kind of come in and you have no access anyway, you can build an authentic brand because you're never going to be, for the most part, you weren't allowed into the rooms anyway. So it didn't really matter. You can be independent, and it's very valuable.
Right. And then it turned out that everybody overestimated access, at least during the White House under Joe Biden, because the White House correspondents were so bad at flagging what was actually going on.
Do you have a sense of your demographics? Who is listening? Who is watching? Who is listening?
And what's your revenue base, Ben?
So I would say the audience is different in different platforms, which shouldn't be shocking, right? My TikTok audience is younger, Gen Z, and between the TikTok audience we have from the Midas Touch Network, and I'm sure you've seen Aaron Parnas on TikTok as well. Aaron's affiliated with the Midas Touch Network too. So young audience there. I would say our podcast audience is a mixture of younger and older. Our YouTube audience are the exact people who are cutting the cable from cable news. Like when you ask people now where they get their news from, they'll put Midas Touch in the category of, I used to watch, I'm not specifically singling them out, but I used to watch CNN. I now watch MTN, and they'll view it in that perspective. We deconstruct the 24-hour cycle into meaningful 12 to 15-minute pieces about the issues that matter most to our audience. They consume that as they used to consume cable.
Can I ask a question? I mean, what is your level of risk tolerance? Because I feel like we've got Kash Patel as the, head of our federal law enforcement, and Pam Bondi, our attorney general. I guess, do you fear retaliation, or how do you process that? Do you consider that as you're doing your work?
Yeah, but not to be morbid. My perspective on this stuff is literally that it shocks me that people are so scared of things. I understand why people would be fearful of things, and I don't mean to minimize it, but like my whole view on everything is that like you only, as far as I know, I'm only gonna live once, and I just don't understand why I would want to constantly live a life of being like humiliated on a daily basis, like some of these,
like Marco Rubio.
Poor Marco Rubio, Mini Marco. He's the first to go, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, just to see him singled out at the State of the Union like that, and kind of mocked by Trump, and he looks like a defeated man. Like you see him, not just the slouching with Zelensky, but you look at his face, and look, this was a guy, his parents were Cuban refugees. He was the rising star in the Republican Party. He had this incredible future ahead of him. He was someone who stood up to Russia because of the parents' experience with the Cubans. And now he's there supporting an administration. I mean, I'd rather, not to say I'd rather be dead, but maybe I don't know. I don't know how you go. I don't know how you go about living a life like that. So when I hear about the retaliation and all of these things, I mean, sure, all of that is a possibility. But before I started doing this, I lived, when you're doing civil rights work on the front lines in Bakersfield, where you have people like Sheriff Youngblood, and the cases that I was handling involved Bakersfield police officers who were dealing drugs into the community with confidential informants off the books, and we were finding out which officers were selling the drugs off the books, who were then federally prosecuted, and then they were back into the public. And like, I just think to myself of every day, go through the reps, chop wood every day, knock out the videos, do the work, keep on building. And then I just think long-term generationally of what am I trying to build here? And what I'm trying to build is something one day that is in that I think it already is, in a quick time, but like to build something that has this generational pull, this thing that people go, oh, there was Fox and now there's Midas Touch, where it's the opposite of Fox. Like I want to deconstruct that, where like I talk about, where everyone's like, oh, we need like, super masculine, whatever. My response to that is, look, first off, super masculine people don't say super masculine. So let's start with that premise that's just not, that's weird. Second, people who consider themselves alpha or whatever the hell, like, you don't bully people. You don't punch down. I never knew growing up in high school, I played sports in high school. It was never, to me, the quote unquote cool thing to do would be to find the weakest kid and to mock them. Like, to me, that's messed up. It was always the opposite. It was always you lent a hand, you stood up against the bully.
Protect.
That, to me,
You're the protector.
You were the yes. And so, to me, this whole conversation about all of that is so wrong, is so incorrect. And I want to shift that framework and just say, hey, that we can talk about empathy, we can care about people. We don't have to sacrifice those values in pursuit of wins. Most Americans will stand with you. And to your point about, what's getting lost, people are just so caught in these weird right-wing frameworks sometimes about all of these culture war issues, that they're forgetting about their own lives and standing up for their own lives and just talking about things that are really impacting people, their jobs, their social security, their healthcare, their education. Like, what are they going to be doing tomorrow? So that's my focus.
Well, you are on a growth trajectory, and thank you so much for taking some time out of your schedule to talk to us, because I think you're just doing great work. And
yeah, I'm so,
we're in
awe.
Yeah.
We're in shock and awe. And we know you've got to go off and teach sports rights, sports legal rights now, right? I literally don't understand how you have the time. Sam and I stagger to make one podcast a week.
I teach an undergrad class at USC Law in the spring, and then a law class in the fall. And I teach it on sports law based on my background when I would represent a lot of athletes in these cases, but also sports, as we know, is also one of the kind of touch points that has been used quite frequently as ways to, I think, push people to believe that it's a conversation about sports, but then there is this, big reveal at the end that it actually is pushing people into, I think some of these right-wing echo chambers. And so I think it is an area worth, when I represented Colin, he was one of the first people that Trump said, private individuals who Trump targeted, get that SOB off the field. And he was setting an example using sports with an incredible black quarterback to say, I'm going to take your job, and then I'm going to show others that I can do it. So there is an intersection there as well. And I think that led to all of this.
Well, you've pulled off something extraordinary, Ben. Thank you very much for joining us. And I hope you'll come back and join us again.
Just let me know when.
Thank you so much.
Welcome back. We're joined now by Ben Falcone, our second Ben of the episode. He's a director, producer, screenwriter, actor, and co-collaborator with his other half, the actress Melissa McCarthy. He's the mastermind behind Tammy, The Boss, Life of the Party, Super Intelligence, and Thunder Force. You might also recognise him as Air Marshal John in Bridesmaids, and now he's adding children's book author to his extensive resume, and his new book is What's Scarier Than Thunder?, which comes out next week.
Oh my gosh, I'm thrilled to be talking to you.
Ben, let me just start by just saying, how on earth do you find time? You do everything.
How do you balance it all?
How do I balance it all? Well, it would be pretty tricky if I didn't, because McCarthy, I call Melissa, my wife, Melissa McCarthy. I call her McCarthy sometimes. She's one of the more busy people I've ever met, and she can do it. So if I have, half of what she's supposed to do, I would just feel weird if I couldn't keep up.
Tell me where you are in this world right now. How are you dealing with the news? What does your life look like right now?
So I think I might be one of the people that's a little bit, probably to the bad, I'm a little checked out. Just because
You're a little checked out.
A little, yeah. It's just also, in whatever side of the political spectrum anybody's on, I get that people can be frustrated. It just seems that whatever is coming out is just, there's so much of it. It seems just, you know what it is? It's just too much information for me. And
just
it's
a little too much.
Too many angry people. So I've started like doing puzzles and stuff. I feel like I'm gonna get really good at crafts if the news cycle continues this way.
Was that part of the reason that you wrote this book?
Well, I think the impetus would be that I could tend towards feeling anxious, and I live with married to a very brave woman, and I'm sort of her coward counterpart. And so the question then becomes like, how do you bridge the gap between, feeling something that can make you feel a little down or anxious or nervous. And the way that I do it is I joke through it. So that's became,
right.
And I don't know, like, I'm sure probably therapists and stuff would be like, but you need to face it. And I'm like, sure, I will tomorrow, but today I'm going to make jokes.
I swear.
So do you live in a house of hilarity, Ben? Are you just all making jokes all the time?
Yeah, it's a pretty funny house. I would say that our kids are, Melissa and I have two girls. They're, birthdays happens. They're 17 and 15. Yeah.
It's a lot of hormones. A lot of hormones.
They're so great. And they're so funny, so they're actually probably funnier than me and Melissa, which is, we're not funny.
Right.
So yeah, but they're really funny. So yeah, I laugh every day pretty hard. And some days when things get a little serious, I'm probably the one who jokes too much instead of just, addressing what we need to do. I'm like the guy who's like, what if I stand here and I'm not helpful at all, but I say like 3 bad jokes?
Sometimes in our household, we have to say, like, I just need everybody in the room right now to know that this isn't something that I can currently joke about. So that just to kind of like to put a finger in the dam of all the jokes that are going to come my way. Sometimes I'm like, I just want to let you all know, I'm actually very vulnerable today. So you're not allowed to make fun of mommy. And everybody goes, okay, you have 12 hours. You have 12 hours of vulnerability. They respect it. They respect it because I carve it out. So like it almost never happens, but when it happens, it's a really hard line. And everybody kind of quietly slinks away because they know they can't even be in the same room and not be making fun of me. Did your children make fun of you? Are they?
Oh yeah.
Oh God, right? It's humiliating.
But isn't that what children are for?
It's so humiliating.
God for children.
Totally. Thank God. It is true that they really keep you on your toes. Like I am, among other things, sort of a hypochondriac. So no matter what happens, like anytime they would like fall or, the girls and anything touches their head and they be, Dad, I do not have a concussion. I promise. I don't. And so they'll get on me about that kind of stuff, which I sort of love.
I love that.
I remember before I had children, someone saying to me, the thing that you don't understand about having children is, because I was panicked that, oh my God, I'm going to give up my life. I won't be able to think about myself anymore. And they said the great thing about having children is you stop thinking about yourself all the time.
Yeah, it's
and
great.
it is such a relief.
Yes.
It is such a relief. They're just the great leveler. They take you down and they exhaust you. They break you in the bank. They cost a fortune, and you still love them. It's the most mystical, weird thing. And you go through the pain of having them, not you, Ben, but physically the woman. I'm assuming Melissa did. And then you forget all about it and you have another one. It's a miracle.
A miracle.
Yep, absolutely.
You and Melissa, you work together so much. You're prolific together. You're incredible writing and acting and like performing partners. How do you, because I work with my spouse too, and people are always like, it's so magical that you're able to work with your spouse. And I'm like, no, because we have like a very clear delineation of like, he does one thing really well and I do another thing really well. How do you guys divide it up? Like, what does your working relationship look like?
Well, I would say we're probably messier, I think, than you're. It sounds like you have a divided, like I'm over here and you're over here.
Well, it divides up naturally. Like it's not like we don't sit down and make rules about it. It just happens that he's really good at one thing and I'm better at another thing, and it sort of flows together. Is that kind of like what it's like?
Yes, I would say we do have something like that. Like the simple way that I usually describe it is I'm like the boring structure person. And I'm like, oh, we could, everything can kind of fit together like this. And then she goes ahead and puts all the funny things in that are supposed to be there. So she does the really hard part. And I kind of like put it, I'm more like she can go very, very micro, which she's aware of. Like sometimes when we're filming, I'll have to be like, I know there's a plant there that you don't exactly love, but we can just move the camera rather than like repot it. Or do you know what I mean? Like she'll be like, but I think it should, and she'd be the first to tell you as well. But yeah, so I'm a little more like usually big picture, and she can get into the details and usually in an amazingly helpful way.
That seems like a very healthy, that's like a very healthy swirled brownie, if I may.
Yes.
Like
thank
a
you.
healthy
Thank you. I like that.
swirled tahini brownie. I'm hungry. Did you find?
She's been watching Meghan Markle's show, Ben, is what's happening, and now she can't get out of her own way.
I'm learning. What was there when I guess, how did the idea come to you for the book? Like, was there an unexpected, were you just like, oh, I'm going to write a book about, like, I want to find a way to say this, and then you found your way to the idea of a book? Or like, what was an unexpected challenge putting it all together?
So I met the editor, this really incredible woman named Jen Klonsky. And so I've never actually had this dynamic working. Like basically she was more or less my boss, but she was also my editor, which is an amazing thing if it's a great person, because then you're just like, well, we don't have to clear this with anybody besides, you, right? So I will say that, so I had this idea sort of being a coward of like, how do I translate something that could make others, who are possibly feeling anxious about something like, say, a thunderstorm, but it really could be applicable to anything, right? Mm-hmm. And how do I, just take a silly take on it? And so she said, I think I love that idea just as a thing. And I said, I think it could be really silly. And it's sort of, we talked about it in more detail. And she's like, yeah, I think you should do it. This is when we first met. And then she said, the only thing I'd say is probably I just wouldn't rhyme. Rhyming is really hard. And I'm like, you bet. And then, of course, I get off the thing, and all I can think of are rhymes. So then, a month later, I pitch her an entirely rhyming book. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. I know what you said. I'm not being difficult. It's just literally, I don't know if it's a weird, small contrarian part of me emerged and said, I can do it. Or I think the silliness of it all just started to go into rhymes. And we were in New York and like got in an Uber somewhere, and literally I wrote a bunch of the book in the back of an Uber.
And the illustrations are great.
Yeah, Kevin Cornell's done beautiful illustrations.
Yeah,
unbelievable.
It's absolutely
it's
beautiful.
Adorable.
So adorable. Okay, what are some things? Okay, so the premise of the book, if people haven't read it yet, and they should because it's great, Claire gets scared during a storm, and her parents make up imaginative tales to distract her from the thunder.
Well, I wouldn't say I would read it as an adult. I would read it with a child in the room if you have one.
Of course.
Yeah.
It's a children's book. I just want to be clear.
Need to read it to each other.
Although that would be kind of fun. I would be very happy to read it to you. But we did come up with a list of things that we thought were scarier than thunder.
Oh my gosh, I love this.
This might be an adult book for you to write. After you've written the children's version, what we need now is an adult version of this.
We do.
I love this. Do you have the list?
We do.
RFK Jr.'s workout logs and his jeans. His jeans. RFK Jr.'s workout jeans. They're sweaty. He's shirtless.
They walk on their own.
He's so tanned.
They stand up on their own.
He's so tanned, he's literally crispy.
Definitely scarier than thunder. Also, Diddy's baby oil collection.
Oh, it's terrifying.
Much more frightening than thunder.
Much more frightening. And Lauren Boebert's spray tan drip, which I don't know. Did you watch the president? No, you're like, I did not watch the presidential address last night, but you should have seen Lauren Boebert. She was absolutely resplendent.
Well, they were all glowing.
Everybody was glowing, and Joanna's blazer hoodie combos, which are really electrify. You're not wearing one today.
I'm not wearing one today. Ben, you wouldn't know this, but regular viewers of the podcast attack me on YouTube for wearing a hoodie and blazer combo, which I find rather charming, but other people say makes me look homeless.
Okay.
What is distracting you from this world in a visual sense?
Like, I can just go back last night, watched an episode of Chopped with the family, like cooking shows and stuff. Like
cooking shows.
Because sometimes the reason I want to do more comedies and kind of keep them out there is because there are so few on. So thank you for having a funny podcast. But there's so few places where you can put your mind and you go away from the troubles, because even a lot of people are making fun of the troubles, and that is great, but sometimes I just want to escape for a while.
Pure comedy.
I went to the most amazing comic relief gala on Monday night. It was a fundraiser for LA, for the fires for LA, which we mustn't forget. I had never seen Jon Stewart live. I know he's your old colleague from The Daily Show. I was spellbound by how good he was. And he had an absolutely hilarious section about aging, which I'm very sympathetic to because I've got issues with my hip at the moment. And he said that he came up with a brilliant riff on how he now masturbates with his reading glasses on. And I just thought it was the funniest thing. It was so funny. And he just went off on this incredible riff about how he was being given an MRI for his shoulder and he had all these issues. But the real issue was that he just couldn't see it. He needed his reading glasses to either look at the porn on his phone or to actually find it. And I just thought, what a great metaphor.
And let's talk more about your children's book now that we've introed it.
Absolutely.
Well,
Ben, thank you for joining us.
much.
I feel like he was slightly underwhelmed by our list of things that scare us more than thunder.
You know what? It's okay.
I didn't want to interrupt. But I actually, because I haven't been keeping up, I just wanted to double back into one of the things on your list, if I may.
Yes.
Does Robert Kennedy, does he does work out in jeans?
He works out. Oh God, Ben, I know you don't want to see this stuff. I know you want to be protective of your soul, but if you Google image search him working out in his jeans, there's ample opportunities to see him in various scenarios with hiking boots, belted jeans, and no top. Very sorry
Also,
to leave you with that
I know
image.
you've checked out of the news, so you may not know he's head of Health and Human Services too.
No, I did.
But he'll
know
be-
that, so
Okay, so get
know
your
the
vaccines
basics.
now. Right, just get your boosters now.
Fill your pockets with vaccines.
Well, and I did read that there was something about maybe if you don't want to do a vaccine, you could take cod liver oil. And I was like, back to my puzzles.
This is wise. Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to talk to you.
Yeah,
you
I
too.
just want to ask you, have you ever been mistaken for the air marshal on a plane?
Good question.
I have. Yeah, people,
You have?
and people will be kind of like, they'll kind of be like, I know who you are. And I'm like, and then I have to do it, like, because once you've been outed, you have to, I'm going to keep us all safe. That's right. Yeah.
Well, that's not scary. That's good. You're going to keep us all safe.
Make people feel comfortable.
That's a good note to end on. Ben, thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much.
Well, that was a more optimistic note to end on.
It was, yeah.
I feel like we've been through a lot.
We have been
Been
through
through a lot in this episode.
I love to end on a high, pleasant note.
Are you going to finish watching Meghan's series?
No. Well, I'm finished, but the series is not finished.
The series is not finished.
Yeah.
Well, if you've been listening, thank you to our podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe, comment, and share it with everyone you know and you don't know.
Everyone you know. And keep sending those emails to beastpod@thedailybeast.com. Drop us a comment on YouTube about Joanna's outfits.
Yes, please.
I saw that you were responding to people who were commenting on our episode with Michael Wolff.
I've decided to comment on our comments
Wow.
now because I enjoy engaging. And also you get such good ideas. There was some really smart comments from people.
Oh.
A lot of people have started reading the Michael Wolff book and we're really enjoying it.
Oh, it's
and,
very good.
Yeah, it's very good. And a lot of people like our podcast.
Really?
I know.
Oh, refreshing.
I know. Someone
Refresco.
was like, be careful when you go down the comment route. But actually, I really enjoyed it. And you get into discussions with people.
Fantastic.
Not least about my outfits. I'm trying very hard. And as I said, this is my Melania.
Yeah, no, this,
homage to Melania.
That's very nice. I just put on a gray sweater, and that was not creative of me at all. Melania would never wear this. And I'm sweating my balls off because I'm perimenopausal.
Well, I think she is too. If you're not a subscriber to The Daily Beast, it's easy to sign up. Just go to thedailybeast.com.
And as my muse once said, and I'm so grateful that she's saying it again, be best.
Sam.
Yes.
How many times do I have to tell you and Melania it's
Okay.
Be Beast?
Oh my God, do you think we can get her to say it?
You should try.
You should try.
I will try. As you said, I'm shameless.
If anyone can get her to say be beast, it is you. Get on it!